This week's episode of Life Planning 101 originally aired in 2021. Please enjoy. Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Welcome into Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services out of the big town of Eastland, Texas. And when I say big, it's a whopper, less than 4,000 people. Did you know that the tax code contains about 4 million words? Put that in comparison to our small town. Whew, what a ride. Anywho. Yes. You figured it out. We're going to be talking a little along the angle of taxes today, but in specificity, I have something I really want to share. I've been wanting to share it for several months, but I wanted to make sure it shook out and nothing really changed because there was so much change in regard to what is called the Secure Act. And so what we're going to be talking about today is retirement accounts. Retirement accounts like your IRA, your 401k, 403b, 457, those are called qualified retirement accounts, and trusts. Okay. Trusts being named as the beneficiary of those retirement accounts could be like oil and water. Yes, you heard me right. And I'm going to say this as I also say that we have helped, a countless number of families name trusts as beneficiaries of their retirement accounts. And if you don't get anything else out of today's podcast, get this. You need to have your retirement account reviewed. Because as of July 2024, we've got some clear direction from the IRS that's actually stayed put, hasn't changed, because unlike the other parts of the Secure Act that kind of back and forth, this hasn't changed. And so here we are. We have some pretty clear direction on how those trusts need to be named, what needs to happen with those trusts, and if there's specific language that needs to be changed in those trusts to avoid a hiccup in your plan and cause a little bit more taxation. Okay, so let's dig into this. Now, a lot of people say, well, heck, I'll just name a beneficiary. I'll just name a human being. And I want to back up and say there are a number of reasons to name a trust as a beneficiary. I don't want this to scare you away. For example, you might have underage children. Dang good reason to have a trust named rather than just they have the money and then when they turn 18, they get to do whatever the heck they want with it. Maybe you have spendthrift heirs that are in their 40s or 20s or 30s or 50s or 60s, 70s, 80s, who knows? And you're just worried about the money disappearing as soon as it hits their pocket. Perhaps you're worried about creditors and divorces taking your money after you're gone. We talk about the what ifs all the time. If your heir were to pass away and their spouse were to inherit that money and their spouse were to remarry and then your heir's spouse were then to pass away, it goes to someone that you never knew. Are you okay with that? Or what if they were to hit a financial hiccup in life and they do have creditors after them? What if their business is under bankruptcy? What if they're just involved in a high degree of risk and liability for their lifestyle? What if they're not? They're just a target because there's a significant amount of money. A lot of people don't understand. They think about their retirement accounts. They think about it as a protected asset, which in a lot of states, there's very favorable laws to that. I know Texas is one of the best. Montana, not as great. So those are two states we work in a lot, and there's some differences and you need to know those. But when you inherit retirement money, a lot of those asset protections go out the window. So it's, a trust may be able to help with that as well. Perhaps you're just forward thinking and you want to think about the what ifs and you don't want to be trying to figure out how to name beneficiaries and oh my gosh, if this person dies, that money's going to go here. That part of money goes to my estate because I didn't name per stir piece or share and share alike as designations after that, or I really don't even understand what that means. Maybe they just can't be, your beneficiaries cannot be accomplished in a naming mechanism outside of a trust. That's very common. And then there's the fact of you just may want simplicity, right? A lot of times a common mistake we see is people update their estate plan, but they don't update their titling of assets and their beneficiaries to go along with it. So if you remember, your will and in essence, your trust, if things are not titled to your trust in a lot of ways are just like a vacuum cleaner. They're just going to pick up the dirt and the bits and pieces after you've already moved all the heavy furniture, like your retirement accounts. These are contract property that get paid out per their beneficiary designation. So maybe you want to simplify that and know when you update your trust, you've updated your entire estate plan. And that makes a lot of sense. So doesn't matter. All of these are good, valid reasons to name a trust as a beneficiary of a retirement account. However, you need to know what you may not know. Okay. And I want to preface this by saying a lot of people say, throw up their hands and say, oh my gosh, this is just too much. Why can't I have things simple? Well, you're not alone, okay? In 2024, I just read this. It was out of this tech startup article on techstartups.com. It was talking about Americans as a whole are spending a staggering, $546 billion annually just to navigate the U.S. tax system. Okay, maybe that's why I have a job in part. But in reality, think about that. You are not alone. So don't give up on what it means for you and your family to live life on purpose just because there's complexity. That is why you have us in your corner, is try to help you figure it out and do it effectively and efficiently. Okay, so bottom line is, if you have a trust that was written prior to July of 2024 and it is named the beneficiary of your IRA, it needs to be reviewed. And really, if it's been written at any point, because even if trusts have been written since this date, I would still recommend asking a few questions because not all attorneys are up to date on this issue. Okay, so why July 2024? Well, this is when the IRS released its final RMD regulations on the Secure Act 2.0 of 2022 and Secure Act of 2019. Yes, you heard that right. 5 years. That was actually about 5.5 years before they were able to give us solid information, because you can see why we kind of put the pause button on talking about this. So because it requires you to go back, review trust, potentially spend money with your attorney, and it's important to know the rules before you go in and do that. But if you remember, I want to back you up in time here, back to 2019. The Secure Act dropped a bomb on retirement account holders at that point. They said, no more stretching out your inherited IRA over your life expectancy. In other words, I can take like less than 4% a year. It's barely impacting my income, barely impacting my income tax, and the money's still growing, and I can use it for a later date, right? They said no more of that. No more of that. They're going to make you take it out within a 10-year period of time. Well, when we're seeing $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, $6 million, $7 million retirement accounts, and there's 1 or 2 or 3 beneficiaries to that retirement account, and we ask what those beneficiaries do, and we find out that they're executives and doctors and attorneys, and very successful people themselves, business owners, and they have high amounts of income, and now we've got to take that $2 million and distribute out $200,000 plus a year to hit their income tax return. That was a whopper. That was a big whopper. And by the way, there is still planning that you can do around that. We're not going to talk about that on this show today, but if that is something concerning you, call us. Let us know. We can help you. All right. So that happened. All right. And then there was this like back and forth confusion on required minimum distributions. Do we have to take them if we have to distribute it in 10 years? Do we not have to take them? And we finally got final ruling on that in 2024. You do have to take them. It's actually, as of this year, you do. But I'm going to save that for another day. We're not going to go down that road. It's a completely different topic for this sake, okay? But what we're talking about here is that, you've got 10 years to fully distribute your IRA. So you think. Okay? What many people don't know is that this 10 years is only 5 years when you're an estate, a charity, or certain trusts. There's the hiccup in your planning. Let's say you didn't name a beneficiary on that IRA. You didn't take the time to update it to your trust. And it was even the right trust. And everything was good to go in that regard. 5 years. So now, rather than taking out that $200,000 a year for that beneficiary, we've just bumped that to $400,000. Wow, that's a tax hickey. So what does that look like if you're in a state that the highest income tax is, no income tax and estate income tax is 37%? Oh, but do we get the 3.8? It might be closer to 40. And then there's some states it's going to be closer to 50. Just imagine half of what you built is gone. How would you feel? Yeah, I'd say you need to do something about this, right? We really need to think about this. So remember, we're in a progressive tax system. This is not good. Let's get back to these certain trusts, because I said certain trusts, right? It doesn't mean all trust. I want to go back to your trust. Certain trusts are exposed to the 5-year rule. See-through trusts are not. They can, not will, they can qualify for a more favorable 10-year rule, just like if you were to name your daughter or your son. However, it doesn't mean the trust is safe yet, okay? First of all, I want to define see-through. So see-through trust is technically a trust that allows the trustee to say, hey, IRS, here's the beneficiary. The beneficiary is a child of the retirement account holder, and you're going to look at them as they inherited this IRA outright themselves, and we're going to follow along the rules of that, okay? So a lot of times what you see inside of a trust is you say, okay, I'm going to have 5 trusts created for my 5 children, okay? So then you have this IRA that goes into this one trust, and it doesn't really say anything other than divide 5 ways. It doesn't even say that divide the retirement account 5 ways. It just says divide 5 ways, okay? And that may all sound grand because you're thinking, well, they can see right there that there's 5 people, right? Well, what if one of those people is a charity instead of a people? I guess I should have said that different. But what if one of them is charity? Well, what the IRS does is they look at the least of these. In other words, they look at their most favorable situation and the rules apply. So now you've been right back, reversed back into that 5-year rule just because you've named 4 children in a charity along with them. Okay. Now you can get around that. You can say, well, I want to create 5 different trusts, 4 for my children, 1 for my charity, and it's going to divide out in my estate. Well, that sounds great, but the IRS was very clear on this last year. They said, well, 2 rules are going to have to be followed if that's what you want to do. First of all, your trust needs to contain language that you could allow the division of those subtrusts before you pass. That's weird. It's really weird. I can't even figure out in my mind what is going on here. Like I've tried to wrap my mind around that because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but that's what they say. So, okay, check mark. And I'm going to tell you, I don't recall knowing a trust that would do that without some revision. So, again, this is important. Number 2, your trust needs to specifically state what percentage your retirement account goes to each subtrust. So you can't just say all my assets divided 5 ways. No, your retirement account needs to be mentioned in there. And if it's not, a lot of times people say, well, it's left to the discretion of my trustee. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore. These are the rules. These are the rules we get to play by. They are what they are. Complex? Yes. Remember, you're not alone. You are sitting there with all the other $546 billion annually to navigate the U.S. tax system. And this year just might be your year that you just need to get some documents revised. The bottom line is your trust needs to be reviewed if it is the beneficiary of your retirement accounts. And it may be a time for you to update another thing or two. Read through it. Make sure it's what you want. And the good news is we're here to help you. You're not on your own. I mean, obviously, we're not a tax attorney. We're not your accountant. But this is what we do. We read every single day. I was actually sending the literature on this to a tax attorney just this last week, just to make sure he was up to speed on the information that's out there, because a lot of them aren't. So we're happy to help you navigate that and forward on information that we're seeing so that your other professionals can get the job done for you and you can continue to live life on purpose and not worry. So give us a call. That's why we're here. And be sure to join us online. There's a lot going on in the world. And I should have prefaced this week. There's a lot going on in the world right now. I pray specifically for the leaders of all of these countries to seek one thing, and that's our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Look to God in all these decisions and have wisdom, true wisdom, His wisdom, as they move forward and to see truth so that we can have peace on this earth. And with that being said, there's a lot going on with oil and the markets and et cetera, et cetera. Be sure to join Black and White Market Chatter. I know they're going to be working tirelessly to keep people up to speed with what is going on in this world and how it's affecting the markets. We always talk about there's opportunity in every crisis. So it's very important to keep your eyes appealed to that as opposed to buying into the fear. That's when people really get hurt during times like this, is because they can't see outside the fear. So I pray for your peace. I pray for our world's peace. God bless you. Have a great week, and join us right here next week on Life Planning 101.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.